Mario Hezonja was selected 5th overall by the Orlando Magic back in 2015, and they were hoping that he could be the spark plug that could perhaps turn this team's fortunes around, because it's been pretty ugly since these guys lost Dwight Howard a few seasons back. But Hezonja, while the footage in this video looks good, his first 2 seasons have been pretty rough. He has shown no explicit skill sets that would warrant him playing a high amount of minutes per game. He has not grown into a starter for this team or even a high rotation player. And given that it is his 3rd season and his team option is coming up, the Orlando Magic may be forced to move him because some other team may look at his potential and believe that they can make a player out of him. But up to this point, it certainly hasn't happened. Someone could take a flyer on him. Perhaps instead of retaining him for another 2 seasons, Orlando could get some second-round picks for Mario Hezonja. And I think there is a possibility that if he does not turn it around, that he could be traded in this upcoming 2018 season. We're going to have to see. I wouldn't say his career is done, but it doesn't look good so far. The next one would be Kenneth Faried of the Denver Nuggets. Now, Faried, unlike Hezonja, has actually established himself as an NBA player who can give you some good minutes as an athlete, a finisher around the rim, a roller to the basket, an offensive rebounder, and just an energy player overall. However, given some of Denver's recent acquisitions, the main one being Paul Millsap, who's now going to be their starting power forward, as well as Mason Plumlee, who I assume is going to be their backup center once they re-sign him, it's tough to see where Kenneth Faried really has a place for these guys. I mean, this previous season he played around 21, 22 minutes a game, not really in the rotation for the Denver Nuggets. Sure, there were some injury troubles along the way, but I could see an avenue in which Faried's just not really meant to be on this team anymore, and I think he could still be great in the NBA as probably a backup center. I don't know if he's really a starting power forward anymore, given that he's just not a shooter, but as an energy guy playing maybe 25 minutes off the bench, I think Faried could be awesome. But just looking at some of the moves Denver's made, I don't know if it's going to be with them, but I could definitely see someone giving the Nuggets some assets in return for the big man, because I think he would definitely make any team better, and I'm a fan of what he does, but it just seems like the Nuggets don't exactly agree with me on that one. Our next player, who could be moved in 2018, is Ilya Silva of the Atlanta Hawks. There's 2 reasons why I think Ilya Silva could be moved. 1, his play style. 2, his contract is a very easy one to absorb. He's only signed for 1 season at $6 million a year, so if by mid-year Atlanta wants to move him and acquire some sort of assets in return, I think they could do it, and I could actually see a contender potentially trading for him as that last piece. And when we just look at Ilya Silva as a player, he's a stretch 4, and that is a play style that is coveted in today's NBA. Weirdly enough, he's changed teams quite a few times, so perhaps there is something about him that teams don't like. Maybe the idea of having Ilya Silva is better than actually having him on your team. I mean, his defense has definitely taken a dip in previous seasons, but now that he's only making $6 million a year, I think you're willing to take on some of his deficiencies for his shooting, and I don't think it's going to take too much to actually acquire him either, so I could look for a team in the playoff hunt to look to trade for Ilya Silva maybe about 20 or 30 games into the season, perhaps right around the trade deadline. Now, Derrick Favors has been one of my favorite players in the league for a while now, and when he is healthy, he is one of the better two-way big men in the NBA. His last healthy season, he averaged around 16 points, 8 rebounds, and the dude is physical as hell. I mean, one of the more rough and rugged NBA players we have today. I would definitely not consider him to be a star player, but when we're talking about guys who are on the level under that, I think Favors is one of the shining spots. Athletic, strong, can finish inside, a very good defensive player, but I mentioned the health a second ago. Maybe Utah just doesn't think he's that valuable anymore if he's not able to be his athletic self. And given that he has 1 year left, maybe they would just be willing to move him to just get something back for him, and someone else believes that they could take a flyer on a guy who, if he's healthy, could be awesome, but at the same time, it could be a risk. Who really knows? I mean, if he steps into this season, he's completely ready to go, maybe Utah would look to re-sign him. And then finally, we're going to go with Iman Shumpert, a player who I think in years past was the type of role player that every single team would love to have, which is he was an athletic defensive wing who could defend, I would say, a decent amount of point guards, shooting guards, and small forwards throughout the NBA. He could also make some plays in transition, but I think few people would tell you that his defensive impact has declined over the years. And I think what's also interesting is this previous season, his minutes for the Cavaliers really decreased, especially in the postseason. In the last round in the NBA Finals against the Warriors, Kyle Korver actually played more minutes than Shumpert. The Cavaliers also just re-signed Korver to a multi-year contract, so that might be their version of choosing Korver over Shumpert. The other reason why I think Shumpert could be moved in this 2018 season is because they already tried to trade him earlier in this offseason. He was about to be going to the Rockets for just some salary relief pretty much for Cleveland so they could get under the luxury tax. So if they already tried to move him earlier, what makes us think that they're not going to try to move him again throughout this season? If they have an opportunity to save some money, combined with the fact that he just seems to be falling out of the rotation for other wing players, then perhaps a team like the Houston Rockets, who at one time needed a wing defender before they signed PJ Tucker and Luke Richard Mbah-a-Moute, perhaps someone else could look to acquire Shumpert. I think he can still be a valuable player off the bench, but it seems that the Cavaliers don't think that.